Well, welcome back to the freaking beautiful wood shop. Today we're going to make a sandwich style cutting board. At least that's what I'm calling it. You're going to have a piece of walnut, maple, and walnut, with the walnut being the bread and the maple being the meat of the sandwich. And we're going to do an end grain style cutting board. What you're looking at right now is me breaking down the lumber. Of course, if you started with S4S lumber, you wouldn't have to do a lot of these steps. I actually really enjoy breaking down and milling my own lumber. It's part of the fun for me. So all of my lumber comes in rough form. It needs jointed, it needs edged, it needs surface planed, and that is part of what you're seeing me do right now. Again, if you don't have this equipment, you don't need to do it, but it is part of the joy for me to break down all my own lumber. A big part of this project is getting everything set in square first. So we're cutting the maple and the walnut to the exact same size, the exact same thickness. Just need two of the walnut boards, one of the maple board. And you're gonna see here after this planer shot exactly what we're gonna do with that. We're gonna get all the boards kind of lined up, and we're basically making square stock so that when we go to cross cut it, we can cross cut it and set it on its end. So right now, just running everything through the planer, getting everything even. None of this board was dimensional before, so getting everything all set up here. So what you're seeing here is me just trying to show you we're making square stock. Like I said, the maple, the walnut, the maple. We're going ahead and now we're gonna glue it up. Everyone knows what a glue up is. The biggest thing for you to do on this is keep your stock square. Anything that you do now to keep your stock square will thank you on the back end. The reason being is you're going to have to plane your stock square, so you're going to lose thickness to your stock, which ultimately loses thickness to your overall board and area available. So I'm using my dead blow mallet just to kind of keep everything flat, using a piece of melamine as a flat reference surface to get it all squared up. Here I'm making a 1-inch reference mark on my chop saw. I like to do just repeatable cuts. You could do this cut at the table saw if you wanted to keep your blade up that high. I find my chop saw is just the best way to do these cross cuts. So what I'm doing now is I'm cutting individual 1-inch cubes of the stock we just made. And what we're gonna have to do is then glue 4 of these together. You'll see this in the next clip. But the problem is my chop saw blade is definitely a little dull. Could be better, so I had to go back through and sand off all the tear out and blowout. Could have been better, again, if you had a sharper blade or were doing this in a different way, but no big deal, just getting all the tear out and the blowout from that cut. Here again, I used my piece of melamine and I made myself a reference square. We're gluing up all 4 of these in a row, and you'll see the reason is because we're gonna do this pattern, this kind of one horizontal then vertical of the sandwich pieces. I'm using that melamine as a reference point. Again, as much as you can get everything square now, it'll save you for this step. To be honest, I had to still square some things up using my crosscut sled on the table saw, so don't be afraid to square some things up if you've got some uneven ends. You don't want to take off a lot of stock because then you'll change the size of the pieces you have here. You want them to look about as even as possible. But the truth is, nothing's going to be perfect. You're just going to have to deal with it. Just like once this board gets out of the glue up, it's not going to be perfectly flat. I used a CNC. I'm lucky enough, I'm a hobbyist, but I'm lucky enough to have a CNC machine at home. If you don't have that, there's a lot of ways you can flatten this board. You could use a drum sander, you could use a hand sander. I'm lucky enough to have my CNC, so that's what I used. Next up is I'm putting a chamfer on the top side, and then I'm going to put a really big chamfer, a big 45-degree cut on the bottom side using my table saw. The reason I do this is so that people can grab it off the counter more easily. I don't do handholds. I just kind of give them a big relief cut so that they can go ahead and grab it easily. One of the last steps we all hate, sanding. You're not going to avoid it. If you want to make an end grain board, you are going to have to sand a ton. Drum sanders make things way easier than using a little Bosch hand sander, but it is what it is. We got to use what we got, but you're going to have a lot of sanding to do. This is the satisfying part. I use mineral oil for all my boards. I just keep a big vat of it, and I don't mind how kind of gooey it makes it. I find that especially for end grain boards, I let them sit for 20-30 minutes really soaking up that mineral oil. Then I finish with a beeswax coating that a lot of us will use on these end grain boards, but it came out really, really nice. I prepped it for photos. This is actually a piece for a charity auction, so I rolled out the little cheap Amazon photo booth to try and get some good photos of it. I'm really happy with how this one came out. Pretty simple process, definitely something you could make. Just a lot of cross cuts and gluing up and patience. Hope you enjoy.